Hi guys, today we're going to have a very quick look at some bits beyond the basics of the web equipment we looked at in the basics series of getting your basic kit together for the British Army in North West Europe. This is just to expand upon what was looked at there in terms of web equipment and associated equipment. I'm probably going to do more beyond the basic videos, suggesting other things to pick up once you've got the basic kit together. But these are a couple of items you might want to look at fairly soon after getting your basics together. The first of those is the pack that we're looking at here. This would be more useful doing early war. You'd see a lot of men wearing marching order at various different times, different periods. This is part of the 1908 pattern equipment, so it's also very useful for Great War use as well. As far as I'm aware, it wasn't repatterned to 1937 pattern until after the war, interestingly. So it remained part of the 1908 pattern kit. And the initial intention was it was only to be used for changing stations, but you do see them being worn, obviously, in France on the retreat, with men moving on foot when transport was abandoned, having to carry the pack. And it can be attached to the L-straps, L-straps for the haversack and worn on the back, and then the haversack worn down on the left hip for wearing in full marching order. Obviously, they were also used in other theatres and as a way of carrying more kit, notably in the jungle warfare out in the Far East. But as I say, in North West Europe, there's certainly a bit of kit that would be good to get if you're looking to do early war. And as part of this, you'll also need to pick up a pair of supporting straps, which are these 1-inch wide straps, buckle at one end, brass tip at the other, and these cross over the pack to support it and allow it to be attached to the L straps. And obviously you can also carry the helmet on the back of the pack using these and so forth. So that set there will be what you need to get if you want to add the packs to your web equipment. As I say, a useful bit of kit to get in addition if you're looking at doing early war, because you do see men wearing marching order. In terms of reenactment, I've had a lot of fun. We did an event with some friends at the Great Central Railway where we portrayed troops in transit, and we wore full marching order 1937 pattern service dress to represent troops on the move in 1939. So from that point of view, they're a useful thing to have. They can allow you to do something a little bit different perhaps, or something suitable for a home front scenario if you're doing reenactment events. So the pack is definitely something I'd recommend picking up if you can, if you've got your basic kit together, or perhaps if you see one's a good price at a show or something. So that's the first bit of web equipment we're looking at. And the second piece of web equipment we're going to look at is this. Now this is a very ubiquitous bit of kit, which is the entrenching tool carrier for the two-part entrenching tool that was reintroduced in 1941 to replace the 1939 pattern. The 1939 pattern that came before this is basically very similar to the small shovel entrenching tool used by the Germans and other European armies, which was introduced in 1939, seen in use in 1940 with training units and so forth. Some of them ended up in France, perhaps with troops sent over in 1940. But that's a different story and not a necessity. I wouldn't even say it's something to look out to purchase or buy a Reaper of or anything like that, because they were very rarely carried. You certainly don't need one. They weren't universally issued by any means, and then there are plenty of photographs all the way through the period where they were in use, where troops aren't carrying them. This, however, is a lot more it's much more of a necessity, because a lot more men carried these than did the 1939 pattern. Though not completely ubiquitously, I have seen photographs of men in Normandy on patrol and so forth without these to lessen the load. So you can get away with, in certain scenarios, not having these. So I wouldn't say they're a part of the absolute basic kit, but something you want to look at getting fairly early on after you've got your basic kit together. This is an original, dated 1943. You can see there. I don't really want to blanco this, and originals are getting more and more expensive for whatever reason. They aren't particularly uncommon, but they seem to be getting more and more expensive. I believe Soldier and Fortune reproduced these, and it might be something where I would bend the rule of not buying reproduction web equipment where possible, because their reproductions aren't bad at all. The straps and everything, or from what I've seen, the straps and everything seem to be the right length. The rivets are in the right place on their reproductions. Buy in person, as always with Soldier of Fortune, because different batches can vary. So if you're at a show or something, try and pick one up that way. But the general thing that goes wrong with reproduction web equipment is the press studs. It's very difficult. They seem to not be able to get the press studs right for whatever reason, or snaps as in American vernacular. And this has none of that, so there's no worry there. The only thing you can really get wrong on this is perhaps the brasswork. So buy in person and make sure you've got one that has nice, decent brasswork and so forth, and has the rivets and everything. So you could buy a reproduction of one of these from Soldier of Fortune. Obviously, in conjunction with buying one of these, you're going to need to get the two-part entrenching tool as well. And this is another area where I would recommend getting one that's suitable for earlier use. And the difference there is not in the head remains consistent. Interestingly enough, if you buy one of these, of course, they're also interested if you ever want to move into doing Great War reenacting, because they were carried during the Great War as well, and discontinued into war and then reintroduced. The bit of the entrenching tool you want to get that makes it earlier use is one of these, which is the helve without the adapter for the number 4 spike bayonet on the end. The spike bayonet adapter was introduced to the design, I think, in 1944, but you don't see a huge amount of them in use before the end of the war. So this is far more versatile. This will take you right the way through from the reintroduction of the two-part entrenching tool right the way through to the end of the war without the adapter on the end. So try and find a helve for it without that on the end. That would be my advice. And again, if you're going to get the cover, you're going to get the carrier, you're going to need to get an entrenching tool as well. So there it is. I do hope you found that interesting. It's a very brief overview of a couple of bits I'd recommend picking up once you've got your basic kit together, because you can very effectively do training, do events and things with what was shown in the 3 basic videos. We might look at weapons separately possibly, but generally you can borrow those. But bits and pieces of web equipment like this are the things to start looking for once you've got your basic kit together, and they'll make your equipment that bit more versatile. You'll be able to change it around and cover different periods of the war more effectively. I'm not going to mention the haversack contents again here because I've already done a video looking at those. I would suggest the first thing to get off the haversack contents is probably the ground sheet or ground sheet cape, because that's visible underneath the flap. You can pack the haversack out with anything and have that under the flap and it looks good. Then maybe look at getting the other haversack contents together once you've got your basic kit sorted out. It's a nice thing to have, even if you don't carry them all the time in reenactments. If you end up wanting to do a kit display or something, you can do them. And as I say, you don't have to buy too much. A lot of people put too much in the haversack and it's unnecessary. There are good reproductions available, and that's covered in the video looking at haversack contents, so I'll link you through to that if you're interested in looking at those. Definitely something I would recommend beyond the basics, but not something that I'm going to cover again in this video because it's already been done. So I say link to that in the corner of the video there if you're interested in seeing that. So there it is. I do hope you found that interesting. Just a very short spiel on a couple of items there, nothing particularly in depth, but just an adjunct to the basics series. As I say, if you like my uploads and you'd like to see more, then please do consider subscribing. And if you're already subscribed or newly subscribing, make sure you hit the notification button. You'll get notifications of when I upload future videos. I also have a Facebook and Instagram page where I upload photographs which aren't necessarily possible to slot into YouTube videos. So there may be something to interest you there as well. I always put links to those in the description, so take a look at those if you think they might be of interest. And that's it for now. So until next time, bye for now.